Okay, today we're actually very honored to have Dr. Sudesh Mujumdar coming here to share with us about his experience teaching online the first time. And not only it was quite a stress process, but at the end it was all worth the effort. And he's also going to show us a lot of things through his iPad. Obviously, he's using something very unique and innovative. So let's give him a round of applause and let him share it.
Anyway, thanks for coming. Like I said in my I guess a promo to this video. For a long time, I was skeptic of distance education, and there was a reason for this. Back in the dark ages, I tried to do something kind of online / distance, where I guess you were considered a guru if you were able to drop a Blackboard cartridge, and you dropped the Blackboard cartridge in. If you managed to do that through whatever instructions the publisher gave you, that was cool. And then you had everything in there. There was notes in there. There was assignments in there. So. Well, you know what? You don't have to do anything else, right? I mean, just run the class, set up a basic schedule, and I sort of run that as a hybrid class, that first experience. So really, this is my first real online class, but that was more of a hybrid Blackboard cartridge, whatever. And I had the worst experience ever of teaching, and so evaluations weren't great either. This was, I think, way back in 2003 or something like that. Anyway, so I've repressed my memory so bad. And I sort of started reflecting on why, when I was, for a long time I avoided that's for a long time I completely avoided this till I had to teach this MBA class. Thanks to Dr. Hall, who's the director of our MBA program. And this summer, I was scheduled to teach, and the way our MBA classes usually work, they're about 8 weeks or so long, right? And just to find it's summer, and I'd known about this for a semester and a half that I was supposed to teach this, so I got plenty of time, not to worry. And Dr. Hall was great. He asked me what kinds of equipment do you need. So I don't know, right? So whatever you're handing out to everyone else. So we got our usual setup. Was I don't know what to do with the headphones. There was a microphone, iPad, right? And so I said, full. I got all the stuff now. I got all the hardware. I'm good to go. I've got to grade my spring final exams. So let's worry about this course later on. So. Finished all my grading, moved into summer one. So this was the course was supposed to start in July, and I said, well, it's May now, right? So I still have a lot of time. So it's July. Let me finish my research paper because I need to get my research going as well. I had a revision that was sitting on my desk since Christmas, and I hadn't gotten to it. So I said, let's do that. Let's take care of that. So otherwise, I'll never get a block of time to do this. So I did that. Then somehow I got roped into going to, Kevin is responsible for that, to California to get certified in how to, what was that, to be a facilitator for the FLC, yes. Faculty Learning Communities. So that gave me another excuse not to prepare for my online class. And so anyway, to cut it short, so when I came back, I just had 10 days. I had 10 days, and so within 10 days, I had to figure out how to design this online class. And so for me, I started thinking about what's really the most important part of, for me at least, in a very selfish way, of teaching this online. What will make, I forget about the students, right? Because we always tell them to think about your audience first. I said, no, this is about me. Think about me first. I'll think about the student. Because my point was, if it's a nice experience for me, then that might just spill over and be a nice experience for students. If I myself, it's like going to work. Right? If you hate getting up in the morning, going to work, you're not going to be the most productive person at work. Right? And so that was sort of my thinking behind this. Is how do I make it fun for me, and then maybe that will spill over and make it fun for the students. And so the one thing I missed from at least my first bad experience with this hybrid distance thing was bringing my own sort of personality into the online medium and online environment. And and what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of these online courses being taught by some other faculty members where they would have PowerPoint slides, nice detailed notes, but students never got a sense of who this person was. They'd never heard this person's voice. There's no picture of that person. So it almost became like a very impersonal environment. And so I was trying to see if I could create somewhat of a more personal environment where they could get a sense for who I am, get a sense for my personality. So that's something that they would miss as well in the online environment. Right? So while they get the flexibility, they sort of miss out on these other intangible things that I think have some learning benefit. So I started thinking about it. I said, what's one way to do this? Well, I said, maybe I'll set up in one simple way is I'll introduce myself. Just like I go to class the first day and I introduce myself to my students. I introduce myself, and so I said I just set up a YouTube channel and I did a quick introduction.
Hello MBA students, welcome to Econ 601, Managerial Economics. I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about who I am, what I do. Some of you have had me in class before, but many of you have maybe not had me in class. So
So anyway, we'll stop that. But so it's one of the things that I did was set up this YouTube channel where I could introduce myself, right? Sort of one way to get a sense for who I am, and then I started thinking about, well, who's my audience, right? My audience was MBA students. Are there any design issues that are very specific to MBA students in terms of designing the course? I said, forget about content, because we always worry about content, right? And so I'd seen some of this content, which was essentially PowerPoint slides and the most technologically sophisticated stuff was voiceovers with PowerPoint. Sorry, Dean. All right, so that was fantastic. I do voiceovers with my PowerPoint. That's the cutting edge technology for me in the online environment. Right, so was that Breeze? Step in. All right, so then I said, well, let me go and see if there are some design quote unquote principles out there. If someone's done some background research on this and found something that works for this kind of environment. So it's an adult learners, right? That's my environment. MBA students, most of them are working. And actually I ended up finding a paper. I have a few copies here, and then if you want some, I can email them to you. Designing hybrid online / in-class learning programs for adults. And it was written by a couple of faculty members at Harvard Business School. And so I said, let me glance through this and see if there's a couple of principles in there, or a few of them that might work for me. Right? And so I read through this quickly, and a couple of them really seemed attractive. And one was the fact that learning happens in communities, right? in a social community. So in other words, more effective learning. You could try to learn alone on your own, by yourself, locking yourself up somewhere and thinking about stuff and learning, but learning seems to sort of be more fun and more quote unquote imprinted in your affective domain, psychologists in here, if it happens in more of a community or more social gathering. So I said, well, okay, how do I do this? How do I, in class, you can have them do group work, right? And so they can work together in groups, get a sense for maybe what someone's good at writing, someone else is good at figuring out certain dimensions of the problem. So you get all these different dimensions of learning happening in groups in class. These group dynamics, how do I create that in an online environment? And this is nothing new. I mean, all of you guys have the group options in Blackboard. But I was, the other thing I thought about was a lot of people will assign groups, and I wanted to get away from that, because the other thing this research said was, for a lot of times in our class, we artificially create groups, and then these groups disappear. But if you want to have more permanence in learning, then we should let these communities continue to quote unquote live on. So in other words, we create communities and then we kill them at the end of the class. So let's give birth to a community in class, and then we'll kill the community at the end of the class. So I don't want to be responsible for killing anyone or any community. And so so what I thought was, since these are MBA students and many of them sort of go through this in a cohort, they might already have pre-existing groups. So I let them self-assign themselves into groups, and that did two things. One, it took the burden away from me. So in terms of complaints and so on, about I don't want to work with this one or that one. And also I gave them a choice. If they wanted to work in a group, fine. If they didn't want to work in a group, that was fine as well. So I let them self-assign in groups. So maximum group size was sort of 5, I think. So that was, trying to adopt one of the principles in this research about learning happening in this social community. And then the second thing that I wanted to hit on was, and this is nothing new again, it says encourage learning by discovery. So, and there's a couple of things here that I've also, this is something that I do in my face-to-face class. And I said, well, I really like how it works in my face-to-face class. How do I try to replicate this, or is it worth replicating in an online environment? So what does that mean, encourage learning by discovery? So some of the feedback we've heard, at our College of Business, we have a board of advisors. These are company CEOs and so on who hire our graduates. And one of the feedback we're getting from them is that our students, our graduates, are great at tasks they've seen before. So if they I give them okay, this is an income statement, do X and Y. If they've seen this task before in class, then they can do that in the work environment. But if we throw a task at them that they haven't seen before, then they don't even know how to begin to go about addressing the task. So in their minds, they don't even have a framework. Okay, how should I begin to approach this task? So what I've done in my classroom, face-to-face class environment, is I tell them I'm trying to simulate the work environment for you. So I'll go into class and say, I'll just put up a question on the board. Say, I teach a class on global economic issues. So I put a question on there. Hey, I'm thinking of expanding our company overseas, and I want to get a sense for how globalized the U.S. is. You've got 15 minutes. Use whatever tools you have to come up with an answer for me. And then the usual question is, how should we write this up? Should we type it up? I said, I'm your CEO. If I have to start answering all these questions, I don't need you. I'm going to have to fire you. Right? So this is my question. You have 15 minutes. Work in groups. Use whatever resources you have to come up with the answer and present it in a way that you are presenting to your CEO. It's trying to simulate that environment. So let me try to simulate this too in the online environment. So I also set up we'll get to the software that I used. I'm going to run that. So I set up something on expectations for the course.
For our tasks or assignments that they haven't seen before, not familiar with, they have difficulty even knowing how to proceed with that task. So that's more as more like a shared graduate if you're working.
If you can hear it.
You're supervising your bosses. I'm sure when your boss gives you an assignment or a task, usually is not giving you sort of a 10-page template on how to go about executing that task. I hope not. Otherwise, the supervisor or the boss should do exactly yourself, right? Everybody will get 10-page instruction manual, step 1, step 2, how to execute the task. So we'll try to simulate that sort of setting here as well. So I might design a task for you that I've never seen before. So what task do you want to do?
But so I won't run through the whole thing, but I laid out those sort of expectations for the course early on. So that again prevents all these 10,000 questions about font size, Times New Roman versus something else. How should I write my papers? How should I submit my homeworks? Anything that you're submitting to me, you're submitting as if you're submitting for your boss. You decide how you want it, whether you want to type it, whether you want to scribble it and scan it. So you make that decision, right? Because these are, after all, MBA students. Trying to simulate that environment. So laying down the expectations up front, because some of the feedback I heard from some of the other faculty was, oh, this is a nightmare in the online environment, because you keep getting thousands of emails from students about how it should, and Kevin, I'm talking to you, right? I mean, that's one of the things, saying that, how should I present this stuff? What do you want from us? So this sort of helps preempt some of that. The other, for me, design issue was, this was a couple of other design issues. And again, talking to some other faculty members, one thing that became clear to me was, in terms of design, when designing a face-to-face class, our assignments usually follow chapters, for example, right? So you're done with chapter 1, and then you might have a homework on chapter 1. So when you type up your schedule, right, for when things are due in a face-to-face class, you might have sort of dates that tie in with when you complete certain chapters or modules, right? Now this doesn't apparently translate well into an online environment, especially dealing with the audience that I had, which was MBA students. They're working through the week, so I guess the time they would focus most is maybe the weekend. So one thing that someone mentioned to me is maybe make sure that you have assignments that are due at the same time every week or whatever it is, if you have weekly. So what I did was I set up my whole course as weekly modules. See if I can get to that. Right, so I just set them up as week by week modules, and so so 8 weeks, so week 1, week 2, week 3, and then if I had an assignment, it was right there in terms of how I graded the assignment along with the solutions, and also at the beginning of each week, I had at the top item there was tasks and deliverables for that week. So they knew right away, okay, this is how I can plan my week. So it was easy for them in terms of how to plan the whole week, in terms of how to digest the material, what was due at the end of the week. So and that seemed to work well. So they would hit that video there. They would know exactly what kind of task, how should I go applying the week. Everything was due Sunday, and I said anytime, because a lot of times faculty would have in their online classes have stuff due like at 11:59 or something like that. Right? And that's sort of, I found that was sort of bizarre. Because then you got to get into, is it Central Time, is it Eastern Time, is it Pacific Time? Send me some stuff on Sunday, right? That was it. So kind of make it easy for them to plan the week. And so these were essentially the two design things that seemed to work for me. I'll stop in a second and open up the questions. But one was trying to get a sense of my personality into the classroom, who I am, and so on, and designing in these weekly modules. Week by week modules, having everything due at a particular time of the week. And also in terms of office hours, these online office hours, Laura and sort of Megan helped me out with getting on the Google Hangout, and that's when I used Ernie's speakers. I said, well, I got to use these speakers now since they're here. So I had these office hours on Google Hangout. They had to sign into Google and to help interact with me, and that wasn't very popular. They didn't really want to talk to me. So through I don't know why. I know why someone wouldn't want to talk to me. But I guess I thought I was more likable than I really am. But so through the entire course, there was just one person who got on Google Hangout, and the good thing I found out was there's an app for Google Hangout, so I just downloaded the app and I just made myself available at that particular time, so I didn't have to be tied to the office computer or anything else. So I could be sitting at Starbucks, one of my favorite locations, and still have my app on to have my office hours. So those were some of those design features that helped me in my course, and just some of the. So, and this was my first time, right? So I didn't know how it was going to go, how it would work out, but it seemed to work out well. And just a couple of comments here. I'm just going to pick on the really good comments that came my way. I'm sure the bad ones. So just a couple of them I'll read and then I'll stop. Dr. Mujumdar, here's my final exam. Thank you for a great summer session. I found your method of instruction very beneficial, and I must say that this has been the best organized online class that I've taken so far. Maybe because it was before the final exam. But so I'm guessing maybe those design issues in terms of weekly modules may have helped these MBA students. Another person thoroughly enjoyed the course. Of course, it sparked my interest in economics so much so that I'm contemplating after my graduate studies acquiring a degree in economics. At least I've got one in my 13 years. Instead, change to economics. So anyway, I'll stop here and then open up the questions.
When did you load? I know when stuff was due. When did you load it for the week?
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, so when did I start? So I was just trying to keep like a week ahead of my students, right? And so that's why. And so when they ask me why you're not opening up, because a lot of times faculty will open up the whole course just for students, and that's a problem because yeah, I see you're shaking head Murray there, right? So that's a huge problem because then you have students going and doing week 3 stuff in week 1, and they're sending you assignments from week 3, and creates all kinds of issues. And so in my first week when I just opened up week 1, I got a couple of questions like that saying, hey, where's week 2 stuff? I'm already done with week 1. I said, if you're done with week 1, why don't you read up on these extra articles on it? Have you gone through all the suggested readings? Maybe go through all the suggested readings. That might help you get a deeper understanding of some of the material. So I sort of encourage and quote unquote sort of force them to stay on week 1 and didn't try to open up week 2. So
just if you want to let them go on to week 2, their Blackboard has something called adaptive release, where when they finish all their week 1 work, then week 2 will just appear on their screen and so on and so forth. So if that's something you want to do, ask Laura to help you with it.
Did you post your videos on a link through Blackboard?
yeah, so once I uploaded them on YouTube, then you can just the URL, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can just put the URL on Blackboard.
Is there a way to just load video on Blackboard?
That's the Blackboard gurus up here.
If you're going to use a YouTube video, I would almost always prefer you use a link, just because people's computers are so variant these days that they may or may not be able to play the video. Chances are, if it's a YouTube video, they will be able to see it. But I think under Add Interactive Tool, you can't. That's a photograph, so you can't see it. I think there's like a YouTube mashup or something you can add if you want to put it directly onto Blackboard. But either way, it's still going to live on a YouTube server, so you might as well just post a link.
Oh, okay. So I can't just upload like a QuickTime video thing?
You can.
You can.
You can pretty much upload anything you want.
But for some students, they might not be able to see QuickTime videos.
Right. So you have to be pretty explicit in what kind of software you need.
And the other thing was, since I hate PowerPoint slides, I like this app called EduCreations on iPad, and so it's just like writing notes on the Blackboard. That's the other thing I do. I so far with my whole career teaching, I've never used a PowerPoint slide. I mean, unless I have to show a graph or something from that I've imported from somewhere else. But yeah, so that app allows you to just write like you're writing on the board, and it captures that, and it posts it on the cloud in EduCreations, and so you can just link that up as well.
How much of advance time you prepare when you're recording this video? Do you do it bi-weekly when the class
Yeah, so
starts?
unfortunately for this, since I procrastinated for so long, right, I was just like staying a week ahead of my students. But yeah, if you have more time. And the other thing is, if you're doing it on EduCreations, you can sort of record them anytime and save them without making it available to the public. So.
Sudesh, it sounds like even though you were creating an online class, you were thinking about the bigger picture, not whether it be online or not, how you want to deliver an assignment. And so do you think the fact that you were in this, forced to take this online, teach in this online environment, that's what prompted you to do it? Or would you have done it, if you weren't teaching an online class this past summer, you think you would have done the same thing in terms of, don't worry when you submit it. You are not going to lay out parameters, things like that.
I mean, so even if I wasn't forced to teach online, would I have
What do you sort of?
opted to teach online, or?
No, would you have, because it's, I think you talked a lot about you were very open to the overall teaching philosophy, your assignments and all that. Was it the online environment that prompted you to think that way?
About my face-to-face classes?
Yeah. but-
No, I'm open to my face-to-face as well. So in terms of, I'm not that much of a stickler about late stuff. I mean, unless it becomes a habit. But yeah, so yeah, I was trying to see if I could simulate some of that face-to-face, dimensions into my online dimensions. But for the online, I was wanting to make sure that these assignments were due on one particular day every week, since I set them out as weekly modules, and not have them sort of randomly at once in May 10 and then the other one May 12.
You have mentioned that you kind of deliver this course in the boot camp where within 10 days, and you're starting from a very panic mode to a very enjoy mode. Will you provide some advice to faculty soon to teach online or about to get on this? What kind of things you will recommend them to focus on?
Yeah, one, of course, know your audience, right? Like we say for anything, whether it's you're giving a speech or you talk to anyone. So know your audience. So in this case, it's MBA students. So think about, because why we're teaching online. One, it gives flexibility for them, right? And it gives flexibility for us. So you don't want to design your course in such a way that it takes away that flexibility, either for you or for them. Right? So that's one thing that I would suggest to keep in mind. And then whatever sort of works for you to get you excited in the face-to-face environment, if there's something there that gets you, there's a technology that can quote unquote transport that to the online medium. I mean, that'd be great if you can find that. For me, it was a combination of Educreations, the YouTube, and the Google Hangout.
Well, now that you've tried everything that you talked about, is there anything that you would do different next semester, or are you going to stick to what you have right now?
I think I like the way this was designed. For a full semester-long course, I don't know if the weekly modules might work. It might. I don't know, but I'm going to think about that since I haven't designed one for a full-length semester. I like this format of things being due at a certain time, so you don't have to keep going back to the schedule to see did I miss something, or set up a detailed calendar on your phone to give you alerts like, hey, assignment 2 is due on tomorrow at 11:59 p.m.
Did you receive a lot of complaints about technological incompatibilities or anything like that?
The one thing that I did receive was about the email thing, right? And we've been having that issue about this Eagles versus USI business. So initially, even though I'd said it in and I made sure my syllabus was pretty short. It was 2 pages long compared to some other online ones that I've seen that are like little mini books, because they've got every little misconduct consequence in there, quote unquote misconduct consequence. So stupid. And in that, I'd mentioned that my email was to be the USI EDU, but I'm guessing some of them overlooked that, because in Blackboard when you submit something, it just goes into the Eagles, right? So the first time I was checking both, but then I sent out an email to them like, please make sure that you send everything to USI.
Okay.
.edu.
Since they didn't use Google Hangout, how did they typically communicate with you?
Well, it was through email. That was
Just
the main,
through
yeah, through email was the main form of communication.
How many students do you have this summer?
It was about 30.
Don't tell them. Don't tell them. Don't tell them how many you put in there. I told them we'd be
We'll
that
cut
way.
it out.
Delete that, please.
What do we wind up with?
Off the record. Off the record.
About what, 32?
On the record, 50, and off the record,
32?
32, 33.
So, do you think that since you put the videos up of yourself, do you think your students use that, was that better for them or that hindered them more so in their learning process?
Actually, they said it was good to have those videos on Educreations, right? Because when I write on the board and I erase it, it's gone, right? Now with on Educreations, as they're watching me write or work through a math problem or an algebra issue, they don't have to keep sort of pace with me. If you know, if let's say they're working at home and their kids spill some apple juice on somewhere and they have to rush to it, right? They can hit pause on me, go back, right, rewind in class. I mean, if their mind wanders off, they get bored with me, I mean, that's it, right? If I erase something, it's gone, right? It's not being captured anywhere. So they seem to like the fact that they could go back, rewind.
You have mentioned about a very good way of learning is learning through a community and group. How do you foster class participation interaction through this model?
Yeah, so for this online, these were MBA students, so they seem to be self-motivated, and I let them assign themselves into groups. So I guess they were picking people they were already comfortable working with, since they were almost sort of running through like a cohort. And some of them who didn't like to work in groups, I gave them the option to work alone. So if they didn't want to deal with people, they don't like people, then
Do you know what platform they use to mingle? Do they meet in person or do they?
Yeah, I used the group option here
Oh.
and in Blackboard, right? And I think Kevin showed me that.
The group self-enroll?
Yeah, self-enroll, right. And some of them would post stuff on there and then on that.
I just wanted to share this anecdote here. So I presented the first session here about how I teach online. And I've been teaching online for 12 years. And in August, before school started, I ran into Sudesh at Starbucks, and he showed me EduCreations. I never heard of it before. And I just got in the summer this iPad. And he suggested you should try it. And I've done podcasting, Breeze, Panopto, everything. So I started using EduCreations. I have the best reviews I've ever had in 12 years. From someone who's pretty much a novice in doing this. Which really means, you know, the technology's out there. I appreciate it because I'm not going to use the other stuff now. It works well, and I did a mid-semester survey in two of my classes, and 80% of the students use tablets or iPads. They're mobile. And this really, I think, works so well with the mobile. It doesn't matter where they are.
Right.
So anyway, there's lots of different technologies out there, but I think, you know, you don't necessarily have to be an expert.
Right. I mean, you just need to know a couple of them, right? And see what they.
You've already been asked what you would do differently next time if anything didn't work and you were pretty happy with things. So 2 questions. Next time you do this online, how much of what you've done are you going to simply reuse? Is there anything you're going to need to do to keep things fresh? And secondly, given that you've done this online now, are you going to change the way that you teach your traditional face-to-face at all?
Yeah.
Based on that.
Right. So I'll take your first question first. One thing I'm going to change is maybe wear a different shirt or put a navy jacket on. No, I mean, a couple of things I would change in the online. One is, you know, of course, to be more current, I might have some more new material that comes in. So this actually gives me time, since I have a lot of the background material already done, it gives me more time to focus on some new developments in the discipline or in the field or in the literature that I can sort of bring back in here as well in terms of suggestions. So this actually opens up more time to focus on that. I might rethink some of the, maybe some of the assignments that I put in the online environment and see if there's something else that can add more value. In terms of how it's changed my face-to-face, a lot of the videos that I created about, you know, just the introduction to economics, now I do that in every econ class, so now I don't have to spend all that time in class, you know, writing the same thing over and over again. It's all there. I just link it up on Blackboard and say, before class, make sure you review this. And
So some of the stuff that you have developed for online now, you're just dropping into Blackboard for your face-to-face.
Right, or I can, yeah, and so instead of me, again, writing on the board the same thing that's already on a video, and I've broken up the videos in chunks. If someone else mentions to me of 5 to 10 minutes max, to keep it at that and not more than that, because someone has had a video for like an hour. I mean, I don't know anyone's going to see something for an hour, right? So that's the other thing because I have some longer ones in there, and I would change that the next time I do it. I have some of these videos I have for like they're 20 minutes long, and that's really too long. And I think 10 is really seems to be when they switch off in the online environment.
Have you just either casually or formally shared this with faculty in your own department, and have they been interested or not? Because that's sort of the next step. I mean, it's good. I think it's great that you're doing it and other people are, but does
Yeah.
it matter to anybody else?
I haven't formally shared it, but informally, if anyone's developing a new course, they've come and talked to me about it. I know, Khaled Al-Khal, he's teaching an MBA finance course. I've talked to him about what I did in my course. So everyone who's teaching online, and they've maybe heard of my experience, and they've spoken to them about it. But I haven't done any formal presentations. My first, quote-unquote, formal presentation. So I think Ernie was going to have me.
Yeah, we're actually, one of the things that we haven't done yet that, Kevin, that is in the works is getting about 3 or 4 of the faculty that have been doing this online to kind of get together, just kind of as an open forum in the College of Business, so that we sit around and kind of, the way I looked at it was more of, here are things to avoid, here's the things that we tried that didn't work, and then have each one do that, but kind of develop an open kind of session for that. And that's something that is in the works, but it's not scheduled yet.
The reason I ask is because obviously the students who took your economics class are in other classes, let's say right now, and they might be in the classroom. So, the comments that we hear, it's student demand sort of drives, well, I had a great experience with Dr. Mujumdar in the summer. Why can't you, Dr. Partridge, teach online? I mean, and I'm just curious if that has changed.
I do, but I do it poorly.
I'll speak to that because I actually, in my class, which is the capstone course, I had an opportunity to ask someone if they took any of the summer classes. And in the MBA program, what we're doing is that all of our classes in the summer are going to be online. This past semester, we had 3 of them online. Dane taught one, actually, and Mehmet taught the other one, and then Sudesh had a third one. And I had asked the students in my class, had anybody taken any of those courses during the summer? And there were quite a few of them that had. And so we had a little bit of a discussion about, well, what do you think? And what I heard was, number one, university positive was one thing.
Yeah.
But the second thing that was really interesting to me was they said, although Sudesh did it different than Dane did it than Mehmet did it, they used different approaches and different ways to do it, but they appreciated the fact that they were different and they weren't all using the same methodologies, and nor the techniques they were using. And they said that they worked. They said they worked well. And so I think, once again, one of the things that's happening is you're starting to see the reflection of the personality of the faculty member that goes into that. The other day when Ramadan was doing this last week, he did a session on here. And you look at the tools that he was using, and it tends to fit that style that he's using. Sudesh here, I'd gone to YouTube and looked up some of them as well and things like that. But my understanding is you primarily use educreations for the majority of what you were actually doing. Khaled is another thing, since he's dealing with finance, he's going to, my talking to him, education is the one major tool he's going to use. Because it kind of just serves more like the whiteboard as they're going along. But yeah,
so really a cookie cutter approach to doing this is not preferable. And we don't do that in face-to-face as well.
Yeah.
That freedom might be a little bit harder, for Megan to support different technologies and ideas, but that's what happens. That's probably what needs to happen.
What I'm having a bigger issue with is in terms of scheduling these things, normally working with the chairs, is that the people who have done them now have said, well, I've already put all this work into preparing all these things online, and I have them there. And then when I ask them to teach an in-class version of this, they're like,
oh yeah,
why? I don't want to get in there and repeat what I've already put out there.
Sure.
So why do I want to do this? And I'm, on the other hand, obviously going, well, we're running 2 separate kind of programs. One's an online for people who really want to do online for flexibility, whatever, and other people who want to be in class. And the people that are in class, we can't tell them to, well, just go to the Blackboard site. That's called an online class, not an in-class experience. And so we still have a decent percentage of people that are wanting that in-class experience. Now, what I have experienced over the last couple of years is that I think a couple things. The evaluation, student evaluations seem to be getting better for us in the MBA program, our grad students, and I think it's a combination of various factors. But a couple of them stand out. Number one, the faculty are getting used to it, so we have a learning curve there, that they're getting better. I also think the students are getting more familiar with the online approach, so that some of the ones, much like Sudesh, myself, saying, I don't want to have anything to do with this, okay? And then once they go ahead and they learn it and they do it, then they kind of change their opinion of that. And I think so it's a learning curve from the student's perspective as well as the faculty's perspective.
Okay, I mean, you talk about student evaluation. What about student performance in comparison to online class? Is it better or worse, or kind of?
Well, we haven't really looked at, you might want to speak specifically to your classes. We've got two people here. We haven't done any extensive study to find out, in terms of, well, are the distributions of the grades significantly different from what they were in terms of online, but versus in class? What have you found?
The distribution of grades is about similar, but it seemed like the work performance was better from this online class than the face-to-face. Because I'd set out these expectations. And the other thing I did was I also took this opportunity, since I was designing this online class, to redesign the whole course itself to make it sort of more unique and more relevant to MBA students. And so I can't directly compare with what I was doing in the past, but it seemed like the performance was strong on the online. And that might be because, again, expectations were clear in terms of, and there'll be less sort of hand-holding, quote unquote, the online environment. So maybe they did work more.
I just have a couple feedback, based on the discussion here. One, I agree with Ernie and Kevin. I constantly said that teaching is an art. There's really no right way to teach any subject. It depends on faculty's personality, depends on the discipline, and depends on how your learning objectives, that what do you expect your student to learn. So I do agree that cookie cutter is not the right way. But however, we need to provide some sort of best practice so you kind of get a little framework, what expectations most likely, and then provide different options so you don't have to invent your own creation. You can actually pick up these teaching toolkit type of thing to expedite your process of getting started. So that's number one. We actually value one-on-one consultation, even though it's not a scalable solution. But that's the only way you can get faculty on board. Like how Sudesh had mentioned at the very beginning, he has to have fun in order to make his student to enjoy it. So this kind of one-on-one approach is how you kind of glue the faculty with the concept teaching. Not so long ago, we have a distance learning retreat, and one of the conclusion was online learning, there shouldn't be any difference. It's just different way of delivering your knowledge. So if you really think about it, that's one thing. And the second thing I want to share with you that the distance learning department very soon is going to launch a faculty technology learner program. The AG Creation app is phenomenal. It's so easy to use. There's almost no learning curve needed. And the only problem is that you need to have an iPad. And only Apple product. They don't support Android. So if you're interested to try this application, you can borrow an iPad from our department for 2 weeks and you try it out. It's almost like 5 minutes. You hit record and you start to talk and write, and then you hit stop. Recording is done. There's a link. You can link it to, you send it to email, and so it's really a beautiful, sweet tool. Like Kevin mentioned, these days, technology has progressed very much better than before. Almost a good learning tool. There's really not much training needed. So I just want to share that with you. If you're interested, contact my office. We'll help you to get started. Well, thank you very much, Sudesh. That was a great Next week, we have 2 faculty members from Indiana State gonna come to USI to present how they teach online. They are both of them are the foreign language teachers, but their ways of designing their courses and some ways to interact with students are very phenomenal. I saw their presentation before the conference. So I encourage you to come back next Thursday and have a lunch with them.